Welcome to Astral Time Walker, a history sleep story channel designed to help you relax, unwind, and fall asleep while drifting gently through the past. In this video, you'll be calmly guided through a second-person retelling of what it was like to live as an average harborman in ancient Greece, circa 400 BCE. The narration will slowly fade into a soothing auditory ambience, aimed to gently put you to sleep. Turn your brightness low, your volume at a comfortable level, and your mind to rest. Enjoy. Chapter 1. The Sea Road. Your sandals meet the packed earth of the coastal path. The scent of salt and sun-warmed pine arrives long before the harbour itself, a herald carried on a breeze that stirs the dust at your feet. The road is a pale ribbon worn smooth by centuries of journeys, winding between gnarled trunks and fragrant scrub. Above the skies a relentless, polished blue, a dome of heat holding the world in a quiet, breathless grasp. Each step forward is a release, a gentle sinking into the fine powder that puffs around your ankles with a soft, dry sigh. The air thrums with the drone of cicadas, a sound so constant it becomes the very texture of the afternoon, woven into the light itself. The path begins its long, lazy curve, and the forest of pine and thorny brush starts to thin. Gaps appear between the trunks, offering teasing glimpses of a brilliance so sharp it hurts the eyes. A sliver of impossible blue, a flash of blinding white. The sound of the cicadas is joined, then gently overtaken by another sound. It is a distant, rhythmic clatter, a metallic murmur riding the wind. Beneath it, like a persistent heartbeat, comes the cry of gulls, raw and plaintive. The anticipation that had been a quiet hum in your chest now tightens, a physical pull drawing you toward the bend ahead, to a haze-blurred line, where sea and sky to a haze-blurred line, where sea and sky perform their eternal, gentle merge. Cradled in a natural amphitheatre of sun-bleached rock lies the harbour, a semicircle of perfect order against a wild blue. The buildings are cubes of whitewash so bright they seem to hold their own light, stacked upon the hillside like offerings. Their terracotta roofs are smudges of earthy red, a warm contrast to the cool stone, and before them a forest of slender masts rises from the water, a delicate, motionless thicket of wood and rope. From this distance, the boats are toys, their hulls painted in faded blues and greens, bobbing gently on the shimmering skin of the sea. The road descends now in a series of broad, shallow steps carved into the hillside. With each downward pace, the panorama resolves into detail. The white blocks resolve into buildings with deep-set, shadowed doors and shuttered windows. The masts acquire rigging, a cat's cradle of dark lines against the sky. The clatter solidifies into distinct sounds. The bang of a mallet on wood, the shout of a cart driver, the rhythmic scrape of something being dragged over stone. The salt smell intensifies, layered now with the scent of drying fish, of hot tar, of wet rope and old wood. The breeze, cooler here, lifts the hair from your neck. Small tenacious flowers cling to cracks. Small tenacious flowers cling to cracks in the stone retaining walls. Their purple and yellow faces turn toward the light. A lizard skitters across the warm rock ahead and vanishes into a crevice. Your own shadow stretches long before you, a dark companion leading the way to the water's edge. The sounds grow, not in volume but in complexity, separating into their component parts. You can hear the liquid slap of wavelets against a hull, the creak of a pulley, a fragment of laughter carried upward. The gulls wheel closer, their shadows flickering over the path. You pass a lone twisted fig tree clinging to the hillside, its broad leaves offering a pool of deep, inviting shade you do not enter. The pull of the harbour is too strong. The final slope levels out onto a broader track that runs parallel to the water. To the left, a low stone wall marks the boundary between the town and the sea road. You pause here, one hand resting on the sun-warmed stone. The full spectacle of the port life is now laid bare. Men move with purposeful leisure along the quay, their backs bent under bundles or amphorae. A net is spread out for mending, a vast intricate web of brown fibre. The water close to shore is clear, revealing a mosaic of pale pebbles on the seabed, and the dark, sinuous shapes of seaweed swaying with the tide. The anticipation that had tightened your chest now melts into a deep, settling calm. It is the calm of arrival, of a journey's end that was never about haste. You feel the sun on your shoulders, the solid earth beneath your feet, and the vast blue promise of the harbour before you. There is no need to rush. The day is long, the cycle of the port is eternal, and you are here on the threshold, ready to step into its slow, breathing rhythm. You push off from the wall, your sandals whispering on the stone-dusted track, and walk the last few paces toward the noise, and the light, the scent, and the sound becoming part of the picture you had watched from above. Chapter 2: The Stone Quay, Part 1. Your feet find the sun-warmed limestone of the main quay. The solidity of the worked stone is a quiet comfort, an unyielding plain after the yielding dust of the road. This is the harbour's heart, its broad pale back holding the sea at bay. The stone retains the day's heat, radiating it upward through the thin soles of your sandals in a gentle, persistent thrum. To your right, the water laps against mossy steps carved into the quay's edge, a gentle, repetitive sigh that seems to measure the afternoon's breath. The steps are slick with dark emerald growth, disappearing into the clear, greenish depth where small silver fish dart like fleeting thoughts. A fishing boat is tied nearby, its hull resting against old hemp fenders with a soft, groaning protest. The boat smells profoundly of its life, of tar, thick and pungent, of old nets that carry the ghost of 1,000 catches, of wet wood and salt-crusted rope. Its planks are sun-bleached to a bone grey, the grain raised and rough in some places, worn satin smooth in others by years of bare feet and dragging baskets. You run a hand along its gunwale, feeling the story of weather in every splinter and curve, the tactile memory of storms and calms, of full holds and empty dawns. The boat is a creature of utility. Its deck is cluttered with the tools of its trade, a wicker trap piled high, its weave casting a complex shadow, a wooden bucket half full of seawater, a single doomed fish circling its confines, coils of line, dark and stiff, waiting for the next voyage. From its single mast, a faded brown sail is loosely furled, its fabric whispering in the faint harbour breeze. You lean slightly, peering into the dim hold. The smell intensifies, a dense bouquet of brine and fish scales, and the sweet, slightly rotten scent of bait. It is not an unpleasant smell, but an honest one, the essential perfume of this place. Straightening, you let your gaze travel along the quay. Further along, a tall stack of terracotta amphorae stands like a regiment of stout soldiers. Their bellied shapes are familiar, some sealed with wax and cloth, others open, revealing dark interiors that smell of wine and olives, and fermented fish sauce. Here, the murmur of barter drifts on the air, Two men stand amidst the pottery, their gestures economical. One runs a thumb over the rim of a jar, testing for chips. The other nods slowly, his hand briefly touching the first man's forearm in a gesture of agreement. No coins are visible. The transaction exists in the space between them, in the tilt of a head, the quality of a pause. The language is a soft, flowing stream of syllables, the meaning obscure but the intent clear, a negotiation as old as the sea itself. Scampers past, balancing a flat basket of scampers past, balancing a flat basket of fresh bread on his head, his bare feet slapping the stone. An old man sits on an upturned crate, mending a net with a wooden needle, his fingers moving with a blind, spider-like certainty. The net spills across the stones like a giant, unravelled web, each knot a tiny, perfect complication. Settle around you, a living tapestry of settle around you, a living tapestry of sound and movement without urgency. Directly ahead, the water is a sheet of hammered silver, dancing with reflected sunlight, so intense it forces you to narrow your eyes. Further out, the colour deepens to a profound blue, dotted with the dark shapes of boats at anchor. Their masts form a delicate, swaying forest, and the sound of their rigging, tapping against metal in the breeze, is a constant, gentle chime beneath the other noises. To your left, the quay curves gracefully, following the natural contour of the bay. Along its length, a series of stone bollards, worn smooth by generations of ropes, stand sentinel. A single gull has claimed one, perched with an air of imperial disdain. It eyes you for a long moment, its head cocked, a yellow eye unblinking before it begins to preen a primary feather with fastidious care. The sunlight glints on its white breast and grey wings. The air is a composite substance. Beneath the dominant salt and tar is the smell of baking bread from somewhere unseen, the dry dust of the road behind you, the faint mineral scent of the limestone itself, and always the wet organic smell of the sea. Sounds layer similarly. The lap of water is the baseline. Over it, the distant shouts from a boat being unloaded, the rhythmic scrape of a hull being scrubbed, the lowing of a donkey from a side street, the fragmentary music of a lyre drifting from an upper window, too faint to discern a melody, only the plucked golden notes. A cat, striped and lean, emerges from the shadows, a silent sentinel of the night. A cat, striped and lean, emerges from behind an amphora, stretches luxuriously, and then pads silently along the edge of the quay, its tail a question mark in the air. It ignores the gull, and the gull ignores it. Both are veterans of this space. The murmur from the traders subsides. The murmur from the traders subsides, replaced by the sound of one man humming as he rearranges his wares. The boy with the bread returns, his basket empty, whistling a tuneless tune. You watch the play of light on the wavelets near the steps, 1,000 shattered mirrors constantly reforming, a shimmering, restless path that leads the eye to the open sea beyond the harbour mouth. The peace is not one of silence but of belonging. The quay holds you, the sun warms you, and the rhythmic sigh of the water against the stone becomes your own breath. You are here, anchored on this sun-warmed stone, part of the harbour's slow, enduring pulse. Chapter 2. The Stone Quay, Part 2. Your gaze follows the curve of the harbour, tracing the pale line of the quay as it diminishes into the distance, where the land hooks out to form a protective arm. Across the water, On a gently sloping beach of coarse sand and smooth pebbles, a trireme is being careened. The great warship is hauled onto its side, revealing the long, graceful curve of its hull, now exposed to the sun and the diligent scrapers. Its bronze ram, a vicious, pointed beak designed to shatter enemy timbers, gleams above the waterline, catching the light with a cold, fiery glint. The ram is shaped like the head of a monstrous sea creature, a silent promise of violence now at rest. Around the vessel, figures move like ants, their forms small and purposeful at this distance. They swing heavy mallets wrapped in cloth, beating the hull to tighten the seams, while others apply fresh pitch with long-handled brushes, the black substance steaming in the heat. Their distant calls reach you as rhythmic, workmanlike chants, timed to their labour, a sound more of effort than communication. With a sideways calculating glance, one black pupil set in a ring of pale gold. Deciding you pose no threat and offer no food, it turns its attention inward, dipping its head to preen a primary wing feather with fastidious jabs. The sunlight catches the subtle iridescence hidden in the grey of its back, a sheen of mother of pearl and lavender. Each feather is meticulously straightened, its barbules rehooked with a precision that seems almost thoughtful. The bird works in silence, a brief island of self-absorption in the harbour's hum. You watch the play of light on the wavelets between the quay and the careened ship. The water here is sheltered, barely stirred by the breeze, and each tiny ripple becomes a facet catching the sun. The effect is a shimmering, restless pathway of crushed diamonds, a luminous, vibrating trail that leads the eye irresistibly from the solid stone at your feet to the open sea beyond the harbour mouth. That mouth is a gap between two dark headlands, and through it the Aegean stretches, a deeper, more profound blue, hinting at depths and distances that pull at something ancient in the chest. The shimmering path seems an invitation, a golden road laid upon the water, vanishing into the bright haze of the horizon. The heat of the stone you sit on has now fully seeped through your tunic, a deep penetrating warmth that soaks into your muscles. It is not uncomfortable, but grounding, a constant gentle reminder of the sun's journey across the sky, its energy stored and released by the pale limestone. You shift slightly, feeling the texture of the rock through the fabric, smooth in places where countless others have sat, slightly rough in others where the mason's tool left its mark. The warmth is a companion to the cool salt air that brushes your face, a perfect balance of elements. You close your eyes for a moment, sight recedes, and the harbour resolves into a composite hum, a symphony of its manifold parts. The most persistent sound is the water itself, the soft, regular slap of small waves against the mossy steps, a liquid percussion. Underlying that is the creak of rope, a chorus of fibrous complaints from 100 different tensions as boats shift imperceptibly at their moorings. Wood groans in sympathy, a low organic sound. From further along the quay comes the dry scrape of sandstone on wood, someone sanding a deck or a spar. A snatch of flute music spirals down from an open upper window, a brief lyrical phrase of 5 or 6 notes, sweet and lonely, before it stops as abruptly as it began. Soft thud of a fid pushing through canvas. The murmur of conversation from a pair of sailors mending a sail nearby is a low, steady rumble, punctuated by the soft thud of a fid pushing through canvas. The rhythmic tap-tap-tap of a caulking mallet from the trireme beach continues its steady beat. A child's laugh rings out, sharp and clear, then is swallowed by the general murmur. Somewhere, a donkey brays, a harsh rusty sound that seems to startle the air itself. Your own breathing becomes part of it, slow and even, synchronizing without effort to the harbour's gentle cadence. With your eyes closed, the scents intensify. The salt is omnipresent, clean and sharp. It is layered with the sun-baked smell of the stone, the damp, earthy odour of the moss on the steps, the faint, oily scent of the pitch being applied to the distant trireme, carried on the breeze. There is the smell of warm, dry wood from the planking of the quay, and the ever-present, subtle fragrance of drying fish and seaweed from the nets spread elsewhere. For a few heartbeats you exist purely in this realm of sound and smell, a creature of perception, unmoored from vision, and the harbour expands around you, vast and intimate all at once. On the water still dances. The gull has on the water still dances. The gull has finished its preening and now sits, puffed up and content, a statue with a watchful eye. The workers on the trireme have paused. One figure stands stretching, hands pressed into the small of his back, a tiny silhouette of universal fatigue. The sun has moved, just perceptibly. The shadow cast by the wall you lean against has deepened, stretching a little further across the quay, offering a narrow band of coolness. You watch a small fishing skiff approach the harbour mouth, its single tan sail bellied with the afternoon breeze. It cuts neatly through the shimmering path, momentarily scattering the light, then enters the calm of the bay, the sail luffing as it turns. The man aboard moves with economical grace, lowering the sail, reaching for an oar to guide himself the final distance to a mooring. His movements are fluid, practiced, a silent language of the sea. The skiff glides to a stop beside a larger boat, and the man stands, hands on hips, surveying his home port. It is a moment of pure, uncomplicated arrival. By absorbing the rhythm and the detail, you become a part of the harbour's daily truth. You are a point of stillness within its motion, a silent note in its hum. The stone holds you, the sea sings its old song, and the ancient cyclical work of men and boats continues under the endless sky. The bronze ram gleams, the gull watches, the light shimmers on the water, and for this long perfect moment, there is nowhere else in the world to be, nothing else to be doing. You are here, on the stone quay, and it is enough. Chapter 3. The Agora's Edge. Drawn by the tapestry of sounds, you leave the quay and step into the shaded edge of the marketplace. The transition is immediate, a crossing from one world into another. The solid, sun-bleached limestone of the harbour gives way to a packed earth square, its surface a mosaic of dust, trampled straw, and fallen leaves. The air, which moments before was a clean blend of salt and tar, thickens and complicates. New scents rise to meet you, each a distinct thread in a dense aromatic weave. There is the warm, earthy punch of cumin, sharp and golden. Beneath it lies the briny, sun-dried scent of fish hanging in leathery strips. Cedar resin adds a clean, woody note, like the memory of distant mountains, while the damp, cool smell of unwashed vegetables, soil-clad roots and leafy greens provides a grounding, subterranean bass note. The composite aroma is rich, slightly overwhelming, and utterly alive. Your sandals whisper over the ground, the sound softer and more secretive than their click on stone. The dust puffs in fine clouds around your feet, each step releasing the faint, dry perfume of the earth. Scattered straw, escaped from bales or baskets, crackles underfoot, a tiny, brittle counterpoint to the murmur of the crowd. The light changes too. The full hammering glare of the harbour gives way to a dappled, shifting luminescence, filtered through a patchwork of faded awnings, woven reed mats, and the occasional broad-leafed fig tree planted at the square's perimeter. You move from pool of shadow into slivers of blinding sunlight, your eyes constantly adjusting. You pass a stall where bolts of undyed wool are draped over a rough wooden frame. The fabric hangs in heavy, creamy folds, its surface napped and soft. As you brush by, the wool grazes your bare arm, a sensation so unexpectedly gentle it makes you pause for half a step. The touch is like a cloud, a whisper of warmth and texture utterly alien to the mineral hardness of the Quay. The wool smells of lanolin and open fields, a pastoral ghost amidst the market's commerce. The stall keeper, a woman with a deeply lined face and capable hands, is not looking at you, but at the weave of a sample between her fingers, her focus absolute. A few paces on, a potter sits at a low kick wheel in a patch of shade against a whitewashed wall. His workspace is a circle of packed earth stained with clay and water. He is a study in contained motion. His bare, muscular feet push rhythmically against the wheel's lower stone, maintaining a steady, hypnotic spin. His hands, coated in a fine grey slurry, cradle a rising mound of clay. They do not seem to force, but to guide, to coax. Under their touch, the formless mass obeys, swelling, narrowing, opening. It rises into a familiar, graceful curve, the belly of an amphora, a shape as old as the hills that provided the clay. His eyes are fixed on the point where his fingers meet the spinning earth, his world contracted to that single, revolving axis. You do not stop to watch, but the spinning motion stays with you as you walk, a silent anchor in the gentle flux of the Agora. It is a wheel of creation, turning in its own quiet time, indifferent to the barter flowing around it. The chatter of the marketplace is a low, dense cloud of syllables. It is not the distinct calls of the Quay, but a continuous, buzzing hum, a tapestry of voices woven from a dozen dialects. Meaning is lost, but tone is everything. You hear the rising, persuasive lilt of a seller extolling his wares, the skeptical, grumbling bass of a buyer, the bright, rapid-fire exchange between two women examining pottery, the patient, explanatory murmur of an old man teaching a child how to tie a knot. Laughter erupts in short, sharp bursts, like bubbles breaking on the surface of a stream. It is a sound of community, of proximity, the human animal in its most fundamental social transaction. The noise is not chaotic but layered, a living organism with its own rhythms. You move deeper, the press of bodies becoming a gentle current. The stalls are a riot of colour and texture. One overflows with glazed pottery, plates painted with simple black spirals, bowls the colour of a summer sky, tiny oil lamps shaped like birds. Next to it, a table groans under the weight of copper vessels, bowls, kettles and mirrors that catch fragmented, distorted reflections of the passing crowd. Their surfaces are hammered to a soft gleam, smelling of metal and polish. Beyond, a farmer has laid out his produce on a cloth on the ground. Glossy purple eggplants, dusty green gourds, onions with papery golden skins, and fat bulbs of garlic braided into aromatic chains. Flies orbit the produce in lazy, persistent loops. The scents shift with every step. Now it is the honeyed sweetness of overripe figs from a basket, their split skins revealing crimson flesh. Now the acrid, nose-tingling smell of vinegar from a jar of pickled fish. Now the dry, peppery aroma of lentils poured from a sack into a bronze scale. Your passage is a journey through smell, each inhalation a new chapter. The ground beneath your feet changes too. Here it is slick with spilled water from an amphora, there gritty with chickpeas scattered from a torn sack. You pass a cage of woven willow containing 3 clucking, russet-feathered chickens. They watch the world with bright, stupid eyes, their heads jerking mechanically. A caged songbird, a tiny splash of yellow in a shadowed corner, trills a perfect liquid phrase, its song a piercingly beautiful anomaly in the mundane din. From a dark doorway comes the rhythmic clang of a hammer on bronze, a sharper, more metallic cousin to the potter's silent wheel. You find yourself at a junction where 3 narrow lanes converge on the main square. Here the crowd thins slightly. A trickle of water runs in a stone channel at the edge of the lane, fed by a spring somewhere in the hills above. The sound is clear and cold, a crystalline thread in the warm, dusty air. You kneel, more from impulse than thirst, and dip your fingers into the flow. The water is shockingly cold, a jolt of pure mountain essence. You bring a handful to your lips. It tastes of stone and shadow, clean and mineral, washing the market's complex dust from your tongue. Rising, you look back the way you have come. The vista is a compressed panorama of life. The bright rectangle of the harbour mouth is visible at the end of a sloping street, a postcard of blue framed by white walls. Between here and there, the market teems, a living mosaic in brown, white and terracotta. The potter is still a blur of motion in his patch of shade. The wool still hangs in soft folds. The chatter continues, unabated, a self-sustaining hum. You have reached no destination, sought no particular good. The act was the purpose, to step from the singular world of the sea into the plural world of the town, to exchange the horizon's vast promise for the intimate, crowded certainty of human exchange. The Agora's edge is not a boundary, but a membrane, and you have passed through. The scents of cumin and clay, the whisper of straw, the spinning wheel, and the cloud of voices. They are inside you now, part of the day's accumulating layers. You turn from the water channel, your fingers still cool and damp, and let the current of the crowd carry you gently, aimlessly, deeper into the shade and the shimmer, the noise and the life, a wanderer in the ancient, endless dance of things, made, grown, and sold under the dappled light. Chapter 4. The Olive Press. A deeper rhythmic thudding draws you down a narrow lane. It is a sound felt more than heard, a subterranean pulse that cuts through the Agora's chatter, a call from the town's muscular, hidden heart. You turn away from the market's bright exchange, following a cobbled alley that slopes gently upward, away from the sea. The high white walls on either side lean inward, their surfaces stained with streaks of ochre and grey from winter rains. The air, so recently a kaleidoscope of spice and dust, simplifies and deepens. The salt recedes, replaced by a rich, pungent green smell that grows with every step, the smell of crushed fruit and bitter leaves, of earth and weight. Now by a soft shuffling scrape, the patient drag of a hoof on stone. The green scent becomes overwhelming, a humid, fertile breath that coats the back of your throat. You round a final corner and stop in the arched doorway of a shaded courtyard. Cool shadow washes over you, a sudden relief after the lane's brilliance. The courtyard is a square of packed earth, enclosed on three sides by rough stone walls and a simple wooden shed with a sloping roof of terracotta tiles, but the space is dominated by the machine at its centre. A massive circular grindstone, taller than a man, sits in a wide, shallow stone basin. The stone is a single ponderous disc of grey granite, its edge worn smooth and dark from its endless journey. Around it, fixed to a great wooden beam that pierces the stone's heart like an axle, a patient donkey walks. The beast's head is lowered, its ears twitching at flies, its eyes half closed in a trance of duty. A simple blindfold of faded cloth covers its eyes, not from cruelty, but to spare it the dizziness of the ceaseless circle. Its hooves, clad in leather pads, scrape a smooth polished trench in the earth as it plods with a slow, inevitable gait. The wooden beam creaks with each step, a deep wooden groan that is the bass note to the stone's grinding song. Still glistening with the morning's dew, still glistening with the morning's dew from the hills. Now, under the stone's immense rolling weight, they have been utterly transformed. The rhythmic thud is the sound of the stone's edge meeting the paste, pressing, crushing, pulverizing. With each revolution, the paste yields further, its cellular walls breaking, surrendering their hidden treasure. The air is thick with the smell of it, a green, bitter, intensely vegetal aroma, like crushed leaves and unripe nuts. But underneath lies a promise of richness, a fatty, almost buttery note that speaks of the golden essence within. From the central mass, a glistening stream, the colour of pale jade, begins to seep. It trickles, then runs along a shallow channel carved into the rim of the basin. This channel leads to a lower, secondary stone trough, where the oil and the watery vegetable matter begin their first separation. The oil, lighter, pools on the surface, catching the dappled light that filters through the vine leaves, covering a wooden pergola overhead. It shimmers with a viscous liquid gold, a slow gleaming river of captured sunlight and hillside essence. The heavier water and pulp, the amurca, sink away through another channel, destined for the tanning pits or the fields, its own usefulness not yet spent. A man stands at the edge of the operation, his tunic stained with dark, oily smears. He leans on a long wooden pole, not to guide the donkey, which knows its path by heart, but to occasionally scrape the accumulating paste back toward the stone's crushing edge. His movements are economical, timed to the beast's plodding steps. He watches the flow of oil with a practiced eye, judging its colour and consistency. His face is lined and peaceful, marked not by the anxious energy of the market trader, but by the slow, satisfying certainty of a process as old as the gnarled trees themselves. This is alchemy, but of the earth, not the stars, turning fruit into gold, weight into wealth, the harvest of the hills into the lifeblood of the town. You stand in the doorway, unmoving, letting the scene imprint itself upon you. The grindstone's heavy turn is a fundamental sound, a vibration you feel in the soles of your feet, travelling up through the courtyard's earth and stone. It is the heartbeat of this place, slower and more profound than the sea's lap or the market's hum. It speaks of patience, of cycles measured in seasons, not hours. The donkey's endless circle is a meditation in motion. The shimmering oil is its silent prayer. Smell of the rocky terraces above the smell of the rocky terraces above the town, where silver-leaved trees clutch the thin soil, their roots gripping the bedrock. It is the smell of autumn labour, of nets spread under branches, of the thwack of long poles bringing down the ripe fruit. It is the smell of storage amphorae in cool cellars, of lamps that will be filled with this clear gold, of bread dipped in it, of food anointed by it. This courtyard is where the landscape is processed, where the wild generosity of the tree is tamed into sustenance. The light under the pergola is soft and fragmented, a shifting pattern of leaf and shadow that dances over the stone basin and the patient donkey's back. Flies buzz in the heavy air, but even their sound is absorbed into the greater rhythm. The man with the pole sees you in the doorway. He does not smile, but gives a single, slow nod, an acknowledgement of a shared understanding. There is nothing to sell here, no transaction to be made. This is not a place for barter, but for witness. You are observing a sacrament. After the frantic sensory tapestry of the Agora, this place feels like a return to a primal truth. Here, there is one sound, one smell, one purpose. The complexity of the market, the negotiation, the variety, the human noise is distilled in this shaded yard into something singular and profound. It is a reminder that all the commerce, all the journeys begun at the quay, all the conversations in the square are ultimately rooted in this: the slow, patient turning of stone, the surrender of fruit, the gathering of light and earth into a glistening stream. You watch until the donkey completes another circuit, its hoof falls, a soft, steady percussion. The oil continues its silent flow. The man turns back to his watch, his figure a still point in the turning world. You have absorbed the rhythm, the scent, the weight of the process. It is enough. With a final breath of that green gold promising air, you step back from the doorway, leaving the cool shadow for the bright lane. The heavy thudding fades behind you, but the memory of it stays, a deep, grounding pulse beneath the lighter sounds of the port, a secret you now carry, the knowledge of the press, the patient circle, and the liquid gold born from the endless turn of stone. Chapter 5. The Evening Lanterns, Part 1. The angle of light softens, gilding the white walls with amber. The transformation is subtle at first, a gentle warming of the day's harsh edges. Where shadows had been sharp and black, they now bleed into soft pools of violet. The sky above the hills shifts from a relentless blue to a softer, powdery azure, brushed with the first faint streaks of peach and rose where the sun begins its slow descent. The heat, which had pressed down like a physical weight, relents, becoming a lingering, benevolent warmth that radiates from the stone. You turn your steps back toward the harbour front, drawn by the promise of this daily metamorphosis, the quiet ceremony of day's end. The pace of work has slowed, the frantic energy of the afternoon dissolving into a rhythm of completion. On the broad quay, men move with a different purpose. Nets, earlier spread like vast brown webs for mending, are now being folded with practiced, unhurried motions. The fibres, still smelling of salt and fish, are gathered into heavy, coiled bundles, their intricate geometry collapsing into manageable shapes. The sound is a soft, rustling whisper, a dry counterpoint to the liquid lap of the water. On the decks of beached boats, men sit in companionable silence or quiet conversation, mending sails with long curved needles. The canvas, pale and sun-bleached, rests across their laps like a giant's garment. Their hands move with a slow, deliberate skill, pulling the thick thread through the tough fabric in a stitch that speaks of storms weathered and calm seas hoped for. The repetitive motion is meditative, a final act of care before rest. You walk slowly along the quay again, the stone now familiar underfoot, its warmth a fading memory of the day. The scene is both the same and utterly changed. The same boats rock gently at their moorings, the same masts etch lines against the sky, but the quality of the light transmutes everything. The white hulls glow with an inner radiance, soaked in honeyed gold. The terracotta tiles of the rooftops smoulder like embers. Even the water in the harbour, usually a brilliant blue or a hammered silver, now runs with molten copper and liquid topaz, reflecting the glory of the sky. Your own shadow stretches long and thin ahead of you, an elongated companion leading you into the evening. A fisherman you passed earlier in the day looks up from coiling a thick, tarred rope. His hands, gnarled and dark from sun and salt, move with an automatic precision, laying loop after perfect loop. He offers a single slow nod as you pass, his eyes crinkling at the corners. It is not a greeting of strangers, but the acknowledgement of shared witnesses. You have both seen the day through, from its bright, demanding morning to this gentle, forgiving twilight. His nod says, "You are still here, so am I." You nod in return, a silent exchange that needs no words, and continue on. The soft shush shoosh of the rope through his hands fading behind you. From a taverna wedged between two taller buildings comes a smell that makes the stomach clench with a sudden primal hunger. It is the scent of grilling fish, crisp skin crackling over hot coals, its aroma clean and smoky. It is layered with the pungent, sun-dried fragrance of oregano, crushed between someone's fingers and scattered, and the earthy perfume of bread baking in a clay oven nearby. The combined scent is an anchor, a promise of hearth and community, of the day's labour rewarded with simple, profound sustenance. Laughter, warmer and more relaxed than the market's chatter, bubbles from the open doorway, accompanied by the clink of ceramic cups. You do not enter, but the smell travels with you, a fragrant ghost in the cooling air. The blue overhead deepens by imperceptible degrees, like ink diffusing in clear water. It is no longer the sky of day, but not yet the sky of night, a profound, velvety indigo. Against this deepening canvas, the first lantern is lit. It happens in the doorway of a small house at the quay's edge. An old woman, her form silhouetted against the warm, yellow light of the interior, reaches out with a long spill of twisted reed, touching its glowing end to the wick of a simple clay lamp hanging from a hook. The flame catches, wavers for a heartbeat, as if surprised to exist, then steadies. It is a tiny, flickering star, a pinpoint of defiant warmth against the vast, cooling blue. Its light is modest, barely illuminating the stone step beneath it, but its significance is immense. It is a signal, a declaration. The day is done. The night is welcomed, not as an end, but as a different kind of dwelling. The single flame seems to give permission. Further along the quay, another light blossoms, then another. In windows above, the orange glow of oil lamps begins to appear behind thin shutters, casting long slatted patterns onto the cobbled street below. The lanterns are not bright. They are pools of soft living light that gather the evening around them rather than dispel it. Their reflections appear in the darkening water, not as perfect mirrors, but as long trembling streaks of gold shattered by the gentle movement of the harbour. The world is being redrawn in a new palette, the deep blue of the sky and sea, the black silhouettes of boats and masts, and these floating, hopeful points of fire. Place a hand upon it, feeling the stone is cool now, almost cold, its stored heat given back to the advancing night. You place a hand upon it, feeling the contrast. The day's frantic energy, the unloading of boats, the market's barter, the potter's wheel, the grindstone's thud, has ebbed away, leaving behind a profound, resonant quiet. The sounds that remain are softer, more intimate. The contented murmur from the taverna, the gentle knocking of a loose halyard against a mast, the distant, lonely cry of a single gull heading for its roost. The lap of water against the hulls is louder now, a rhythmic, soothing heartbeat in the stillness. The fishing boat you touched earlier is a dark shape against the shimmering path the last of the sun lays on the water. Its mast points to the first true stars, beginning to prick through the velvet overhead. The air carries a new chill, a clean, salty freshness that raises the hairs on your arms. You breathe it in, and it tastes of night, of depth, of rest. The frantic sensory catalogue of the day, the salt, the tar, the cumin, the crushed olives, has settled into this one, clean, expansive scent of the sea at evening. The single lantern in the doorway flickers in a slight breeze, its flame bending and dancing, a living thing holding its own against the immense, star-dusted dark. This is the harbour's exhalation, a long, slow sigh of contentment. The work is folded, the sails are mended, the nets are coiled, the lanterns are lit. The day has been good, and the night is gentle. You stand on the cool stone between the dark water and the glowing doors, a part of the transition, watching the world turn from gold to blue to black, punctuated by these brave, tiny, flickering stars. Chapter 5. The Evening Lanterns, Part 2. Doorways and windows. From the prows of doorways and windows, from the prows of boats and the poles of empty stalls, the flames emerge. Each new point of light is a small victory, a declaration of habitation and warmth in the vast, cool dark. The pools of illumination on the stone quay are soft-edged and amber, merging in places to form irregular continents of gold in a sea of shadow. On the water, the effect is magical. Each lantern casts a long, trembling reflection, a luminous spear that shatters and reforms with every tiny wavelet. The harbour's black surface becomes a rippling mosaic of broken gold, a liquid, shifting counterpart to the steady stars, now emerging overhead. The harbour's voice quiets to a murmur. The day's clamour, the shouts, the hammering, the market's buzz has dissolved. What remains is the sound of settlement. The murmur from the taverna is a low, contented drone, punctuated by the occasional burst of laughter that seems to hang in the air before fading. From an open window comes the soft, rhythmic scrape of a spoon against a pottery bowl, a domestic sound of profound peace. The creak of ropes and wood continues, but slower now, a sleepy conversation between boats resting at their moorings. The dominant sound, rising to fill the space left by the departed day, is the lap of water against hulls. It is a soft, repetitive, almost medicinal sound, a constant, gentle slosh and sigh that seems to soothe the very stones. Each small wave kisses the seaweed-clad steps, the tarred hulls, the mossy pilings, with a tender, consistent rhythm, as if the sea itself is rocking the harbour to sleep. You find your seat on the low wall again, now cool to the touch. The limestone has released all its stored solar heat, and the surface is smooth and almost damp with the evening's chill. You sit and the cold seeps through your tunic, a sharp, clean contrast to the day's warmth. It is a grounding sensation, anchoring you firmly in this moment of transition. From this familiar vantage, the view has condensed into silhouettes and light. The trireme across the bay is a dark silhouette against the twilight, its careened hull a black cutout against the pebbled beach, which still holds a faint, ghostly luminescence from the departed sun. Its bronze ram no longer gleams. It is a dull shadow, its menace softened by the night. The masts of the anchored fleet are a forest of thin black lines, etching a delicate calligraphy against the deepening sky. Stars begin to prick the velvet sky above the hills. They appear not all at once, but with a shy deliberation. First one, then another, then a faint smudge that resolves into a cluster. They're cold, sharp, and infinitely distant, their light a silver pinprick compared to the warm, living gold of the lanterns below. Between the terrestrial and celestial lights, the world feels perfectly balanced. The hills are a deeper black against the star-flecked indigo, a solid, silent rim holding the bowl of the harbour. A thin sliver of a moon, a pale paring of fingernail, hangs low over the eastern ridge, adding its own feeble, poetic silver to the composition. A sense of deep peace settles, a feeling of being part of the harbour's daily cycle. Not an observer, but a resting point within it. The day's journey, from the coastal path to the sun-warmed quay, through the market's tapestry and the olive press's rhythmic throb, has led to this stillness. You're not separate from the scene, you're a component of it, as much as the cool wall, the lapping water, or the flickering lanterns. Your stillness is your contribution to the evening's quiet. The harbour has worked, and now it rests, and you rest with it. The cyclical nature of it all feels not repetitive, but profoundly reassuring. The lanterns will be extinguished late in the night. The stars will wheel overhead. The sun will find the eastern hills again, and the quay will once again warm underfoot. You are a witness to one turn of that great wheel, sitting at the precise point where motion slows to a pause. The salt air is cool on your skin. It carries the night's pure essence, scrubbed clean of the day's complexities. It is the smell of the deep, dark sea beyond the headlands, of cool stone, of wet wood. The fish and tar smells are gone, or have retreated into the background, leaving this crisp, oceanic breath that fills the lungs and clears the mind. You pull it deep into your chest, and it feels like drinking clarity. On the breeze, you can just detect the faint, sweet scent of wood smoke from 100 small hearths, a thread of domesticity woven into the wild salt. You watch as a final lantern is lit on the deck of a small fishing boat. A man moves there, a shadow against the cabin's soft glow, checking a line before disappearing below. The lantern sways gently with the boat's rock, its reflection stretching and contracting on the water like a breathing thing. The last sounds of activity cease. The taverna's murmur softens. A door closes somewhere with a solid final thud. The crickets in the scrub beyond the town begin their nightly chorus, a churring layer of sound that seems to come from the very earth. But here on the quay, the water's lap is the dominant song. You look down at your hands, resting on your knees, pale in the lantern light from across the way. They too feel like they belong here, part of the quiet architecture of the evening. The memory of the day passes through your mind, the blue expanse of the sea road, the rough grain of the boat's hull, the potter's spinning wheel, the crushing weight of the olive stone, not as separate events, but as a single flowing experience that has deposited you here, on this cool stone, under these emerging stars. You are a vessel that has been filled, and it is full of the day's residue, the settled dust of experience. It is the satisfaction of a story observed, a rhythm absorbed. You are a vessel that has been filled, and now in the stillness the contents settle. The harbour holds you in its nocturnal embrace, a parenthesis of calm between the day's labour and the night's deep sleep. The lanterns flicker, the stars hold their steady watch, the water whispers against the stone, and for a long, timeless moment, you are not a visitor, but a feature of the landscape, a silent stone on the wall, breathing in unison with the sleeping port. The cool air, the lapping water, the scent of salt and night. This is the harbour's true voice, soft and deep, speaking only in the dark, and you understand its language perfectly. Chapter 6. The Homeward Path. Wall your muscles remembering the day's wall, your muscles remembering the day's quiet journey, a catalogue of small exertions now settling into a pleasant fatigue. The limestone is cold and damp against your palms as you rise. With a last look at the lanterns reflected in the black water, their golden streaks trembling like submerged fire, you turn your back to the sea. The decision is not one of reluctance, but of completion. The harbour has given all it can for this day. To ask for more would be greed. You face the darkened mouth of the lane that leads up and away. Hulls becomes a generalised sigh, then Hulls becomes a generalised sigh, then merges with the rustle of your own passage. Replacing it comes the chirrup of crickets from the dry scrub beyond the town, a steady metallic thrumming that seems to vibrate from the earth itself. It is the sound of the hills reclaiming the night, a chorus untouched by human industry. The lane climbs gently, its cobbles uneven underfoot in the deep gloom. You pass the last shuttered house, its lantern extinguished, and the darkness becomes nearly total, broken only by the vast spill of stars overhead. The road ascends under a canopy of stars. The coastal path, invisible now, is felt through the soles of your sandals, the familiar give of packed earth, the occasional scatter of loose pebbles. The pine trees on either side are blacker shapes against the lesser black of the sky, their silhouettes ragged and fragrant. Their scent, sharp and clean, cuts through the residual salt on the breeze. You walk steadily, your eyes adjusting. The starlight is faint but sufficient, casting the world in shades of silver and ink. You can see the pale ribbon of the path unwinding ahead, and the darker masses of rocks and shrubs at its edges. The air grows cooler as you gain height, carrying the dry herbal smells of thyme and sage crushed underfoot earlier in the day. The memory of the blue harbour sits in your mind, a calm, bright picture, untouched by the night that now envelops you. It exists as a perfect, self-contained tableau. The semicircle of white houses, the forest of masts, the shimmering Aegean expanse. You recall the heat of the Quay stone at noon, the rough grain of the fishing boat's hull, the rhythmic thud of the olive press, the dappled light and complex hum of the Agora. Each sensation is a tile in a mosaic now complete, a day captured and held. The memory does not pull you back, it rests within you, a warmth you carry uphill, a light against the cool dark. The harbour is behind and below, still flickering with its few brave lights, but its essence travels with you, settled in your bones. You walk steadily toward the darkened shape of your home among the pines. You know the way by heart, by the feel of the path slope and the particular arrangement of boulders that loom like sleeping beasts in the starlight. The night is alive with its own quiet sounds. An owl calls once, a soft questioning note from deep in the woods. Something small scurries through the dry brush nearby, a rustle that ceases as quickly as it begins. The crickets continue their ceaseless song, the very sound of the night's patience. Your own breathing is even, matching the rhythm of your steps, a soft personal wind. The fatigue is a companion, not a burden, a proof of the day fully lived. The path levels out onto a small plateau. Here, you pause and turn. The town is a distant, twinkling constellation, nestled in the absolute blackness of the bay, a tiny mimicry of the starry vault above. The harbour lights are mere pinpricks now, the lanterns you watched being lit reduced to a faint, golden smudge. The sea is an invisible presence, a vast, dark void, but you know it is there, breathing slowly in the night. The silence up here is profound, broken only by the wind in the pine needles, a sound like distant, gentle rain. You look for a long moment, taking in the completed view, the world below, small and contained, and the world above, infinite and cold. You stand at the threshold between them. Turning back, you see it, the darker shape against the trees, the low outline of your home. No light burns within, you left none. It is a place of waiting, of stillness. The last stretch of path is soft with fallen pine needles, muffling your steps. The scent of the trees is strongest here, a familiar, welcoming embrace. You reach the door, your hand finding the smooth, worn wood in the dark. The latch lifts with a familiar, heavy click. You push inside, and the night sounds are immediately muted, replaced by the closer, intimate silence of the enclosed space. It smells of dried herbs, of cool clay, of quiet years. You do not light a lamp. The starlight through the single window is enough. You sit on the edge of the sleeping pallet, listening to the distant cricket song and the wind. The day's journey is over. The harbour's blue memory rests within you, a quiet, radiant core. The homeward path has led not away from the day, but deeper into its essence, carrying the sea's salt, the market's spice, the olive's bitterness, and the lantern's gold into the heart of the dark, quiet hills. You lie back, the fatigue a soft weight. The last thing you hear before sleep is the wind in the pines, a sound like the sea, or like breathing, a lullaby for the traveller returned. The cycle is complete. You are home. We have reached the end of this video's narrative section. What follows is a gentle transition into soothing auditory ambience, aimed at putting you to sleep for good. I hope you've already drifted off into a deep slumber by this point, but if you have not, do not worry. Put your mind at ease, relax your body, and take a few deep breaths. There is nothing left to do. You have reached the end of your day. Have a good night, and may you sleep well.